You will also be sitting on some pressure on the alternative, the Kingsway option, coming from Toti through the Prospect, and where everybody was being diverted overnight last night. Joburg, a little bit of traffic on the R24, just leaving the airport towards Barber Road. Dipcliffe interchange is fine, no troubles there. And if you're coming out of Cape Town's Mitchell's Plain area, again, very busy up into the roadworks at Samora. Michelle hits you in the mornings, leaving Mitchell's Plain, and gets you again in the afternoon coming back home. Big spill over onto Velta Vreden, which is heavy getting up towards Philippi area, and said Berman with roadworks causing delays, moving slowly towards the R300. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Coming up to 9 minutes after 6 on this Thursday, the 22nd of May, 2025. It's the proverbial morning after the night before. Good morning to you and welcome to it, the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. We've scanned news developments in your locality, across the country, the continent and the world, and packaged those that we believe will move the needle in your world today into this briefing session, which we're now proud to present to you as the Morning Brief. Among some of what we will tell you this morning, Trump and Ramaphosa in the Oval Office, in many ways full of sound, not short on a degree of fury, but did it signify anything? Big on golf, heavy on books, a book about golf to be specific, weighing some 14 kilograms, we're told, that President Ramaphosa gave to President Trump, but no jet to give from our president to the US leader. But did President Ramaphosa's intended reset of the relationship between the two countries even take off or tee off? Julius Malema loomed large, even though he wasn't there. Johan Rupert, Annie Els, Retief Hussein, and Zingiswa Losi were there and made their presence felt. But did the message about what is and what isn't happening in South Africa finally sink in? Was it all worth the trouble? SABC News International editor Sophie Mkwena will unpack all of the drama that unfolded in the Oval Office, as well as the subsequent one-on-one meeting between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the US President Donald Trump. And that conversation is coming up at about 20 past 7. The other big story we are focusing on is this: what Enoch Godongwana gave back with the one hand in the removal of his earlier proposed VAT hike, he took away with the other hand in a higher general fuel levy from next month. The finance minister had to get the money from somewhere, right? So in the wake of lower revenue than he would have gotten with the VAT increase, spending will be cut. But Godongwana insists that key service delivery departments will retain their baseline spending allocations. So we have full analysis of the budget 3.0, and that is coming up at the top of 7 a.m. I said it. I want them out. Get them out. Those were the unambiguous orders from Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie last week, addressing leaders of entities reporting to his department. Who does he want out? Foreign nationals working in these entities, telling their CEOs and chairpersons and other leaders that they have 3 weeks to remove all foreign nationals from these entities. And among some of the artists and activists, that those comments have not gone well. Those comments have not gone well among some artists and activists, if for nothing else but for his failure to differentiate or show that he has a differentiation in his mind between the various categories of foreign nationals that have been employed in these particular spaces. Documented versus undocumented, on work visas versus permanent resident. A few activists raising concerns about that and about the instructions' lawfulness, and quite frankly, accusing the minister of xenophobia. So at about 10 to 7 this morning, I'll be in conversation with Nicole Fritz of the Campaign for Free Expression, among those that are expressing their dissatisfaction and unhappiness about Minister Gayton McKenzie's orders about getting foreign nationals out of these entities that report to his department within 3 weeks. Once again, we've brought the full delegation to this, our daily tete-a-tete. It's not in the White House in the Oval Office. It's in studio, but we have at least one camera in the studio. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne on your traffic, Zaikan at the sports desk, Melissa Buta with the morning brief, in brief, coming up shortly. Dowling Lechela has your business and market updates throughout the morning, and Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7. Through it all, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you, your reflections on all of these stories and a lot more that we will cover over the next 3 hours. Please call me on 086 000 2032 or send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. On social media, as always, we are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel. And that is the one camera I was talking about. And that YouTube channel is SAFM Radio. So what are we waiting for? Let's get this briefing session started.
As the uphill pressure mounts, Amakosi aim to calm the situation with maximum points, while Rise and Shine believe they know how to stop the gold and black. Who will rise with victory? Rise, Kosi Rise, or Rise and Shine? This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Kaizer Chiefs FC versus Polokwane City FC, on Saturday 24 May, streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One at 2:30 p.m. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's say good morning to Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. So, Enoch Godongwana, the finance minister, delivering his budget speech yesterday, and naturally lots of reaction, particularly from the opposition. But you've picked up on one strand of criticism that has to do with the failure to even mention what the plan is to boost and substitute the funds that are being lost through the suspension of PEPFAR.
Morning, Thulasizwe. So concerns have been raised over South African government's failure to allocate funds to cover the 8 billion shortfall left by the suspension of the US-funded PEPFAR HIV/AIDS program. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana confirmed in his budget speech that no provisions have been made yet. Political parties, including the UDM and the DA, have criticized the move by the government, lacking of concrete planning, with the DA expressing hope that President Ramaphosa's meeting with the U.S. President Trump will lead to PEPFAR's reinstatement. The suspension poses a serious threat to South Africa's HIV response efforts, as we've seen in the past few weeks.
Absolutely. Well, you and I know how that meeting went. We don't know how far it went in that conversation about PEPFAR. This video that went viral around the assault of this 14-year-old girl, that continues to dominate the conversation and calls for accountability.
Yes, so the latest is that the mother of the 14-year-old girl who was violently attacked is insisting on pursuing the matter in court and not outside of court, with a settlement in order for the responsible parties to be fully held accountable for their actions. Despite being advised by the police to speak to the parents of the accused, the mother has remained focused on seeking justice and even requested financial contributions from the parents of the accused, though they could only offer a partial amount at the end of the month, that is, towards her bills. The victim, who was lured into the attack, has returned to school but continues to face emotional and physical trauma. The accused are expected to appear again in court next week.
And while he's in the United States, Minister Pakstau faces some significant action and basically now has been given a deadline by which to make an announcement of who will take over the running of the National Lottery.
Yes, so there is a conclusion to, the long-running legal matter. The Pretoria High Court has ordered that the minister announce the successful applicant for South Africa's fourth national lottery license and negotiate a license agreement by May 28th. The court declared the minister's earlier decision to extend the bid validity period to May 2026 as unlawful. The ruling follows an urgent application by the bidder, Winanjalo, which argued that the delays would leave the country without a lottery operator after the current license expires at the end of May. Judge Salit Potteril criticized the minister for failing to justify the delay, finding a breach of administrative and constitutional duties. The minister and the National Lotteries Commission and current operator Ituba was ordered to cover all legal costs in this matter.
All right, that's an interesting one, Melissa. Thank you for lifting that up. It will be fascinating to just read what was said in that judgment and the importance of the National Lottery. Melissa Puta there with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Here's what you can expect on the weather front on this Thursday. There's one warning that has come through from the Weather Service. It's a yellow level 2 warning. It says damaging waves resulting in difficulty in navigation at sea, localized disruption of harbors and ports, and localized disruptions to beachfront activities. Those conditions expected between Cape Agalas and Kosi Bay. And then the rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 19. Johannesburg fine 4 to 17. Mbombela fine 7 to 21. Polokwane will be fine with a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 21. Mahikeng fine 4 to 19. Bloemfontein will be fine with a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 18. Kimberley fine 8. Kimberley fine 0 to 18. Uppington will be fine with a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 20. Cape Town will be partly cloudy 10 to 19. George will be partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 18. Gqeberha partly cloudy with isolated morning showers 13 to 19. East London will be partly cloudy with isolated morning showers 13 to 21. Durban, partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 20. Richards Bay will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain 17 to 21. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 18.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
The land is their legacy, but in Season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May. Only on S3. Open up.
Specsavers Audiology, South Africa's largest audiology group, brings you the all-new Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aids. Experience cutting-edge features at a price you can afford. For a limited time only, buy one Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one and get 50% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 minutes after 6. Let's turn our attention to this story now. The former Ukrainian politician Andriy Portnov, a close ally of the ousted pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych, was shot dead outside an elite school near Madrid in Spain. The killing comes amid ongoing tensions related to the Russia-Ukraine war and raises questions about the political retribution, espionage, and the safety of exiled figures from the post-Yanukovych era. Right? That name seems to be tripping me up a little bit, but a name that doesn't trip me up. Roland Henwood, political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Good morning to you and thank you for your time once again. So who's Andriy Portnov? And just Please locate him for us within this, the matrix of Ukrainian politics and the ousting of Viktor Yanukovych.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you. Well, this goes back to the politics in the Ukraine before 2014. So we're looking at the era of what was called the Orange Revolution and the massive protests that erupted in Ukraine when Yanukovych, the president, then decided to turn his back on EU. There was negotiations for Ukraine to start the process to join the EU. Yanukovych decided to turn his back on the EU and cement closer ties with Putin and with Russia. And that caused major upheavals because that was the expectation, and the demand was that Ukraine would, like other Eastern European countries of the time, move closer to the European Union for the economic benefits that would generate. He was an important advisor and assistant to Yanukovych, the president. Yanukovych fled to Moscow. He then left the Ukraine. What we now know, he lived in Portugal for now, but he went back to Ukraine at some stage and then left again. It's not clear what happened. There's not much information that I could find on that, why he left again. But indications are that he was active in politics in Ukraine until he left again, at least, maybe a little bit after that. Of course, opposing the government of Zelensky. And then, he went on and lived in Spain.
Yeah.
What he was doing there, I'm not clear on. But it has all the hallmarks of a political assassination. So it may be that he was still active in politics, or it may be that it was a revenge killing of some kind, but linked to the politics in Ukraine.
Wow, that is fascinating, because it would not be the first incident of this nature happening in Spain, isn't it? That's linked in one way or another to the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
No, I think we may a little bit isolated in that sense in South Africa, but there have been quite a number of such actions, political assassinations, acts of sabotage happening across Europe in quite a number of countries. Most of these have, however, been linked directly to Russia and the activities of Russian agents. But we have seen some of the people around the Ukrainian conflict in a broad sense being targeted and being assassinated. Both those in support of Ukraine and those in support of Russia. So it seems to be part of an underworld, if I may use that word, that is playing out, that is related to the conflict, and probably people by association or by actions being involved on different sides of this conflict, being targeted for what they are doing and probably for the influence they have. And then, of course, also upending other networks of people working both in Europe and in other parts. But there seems to be a lot of activity broadly in the context of Europe that is related to intelligence organizations, sabotage of different kinds happening, and then people being targeted.
Yeah. And in the meantime, though, and away from this incident in Spain and the killing of Portnov, the conflict itself seems to be intensifying, even as people are talking about the potential of negotiations. Donald Trump revealing that he had a 2-hour phone call with the Russian president and various other interactions. But on the battlefield, an intensification.
Yes, definitely so. And it's difficult to interpret why this is happening. It may be preparation because this war has a strong seasonal dimension. So, we're entering the summer season in Europe, in the Northern Hemisphere, and it may be linked to the preparations for a new offensive by Russia, driven probably from the Russian side, that is going to coincide with with spring and the summer season, when we see very intense fighting. But it may also be related to the talk and the move around trying to get this conflict to an end. And that's something that we've seen in the past. When you reach a stage where there's serious talks about ending conflict, starting with peace negotiations. You see an intensification of what happens on the battlefront in order to cement what has been gained, in order to make sure that you have a foothold, make sure that you're in the best position as you can be. But it may also, as I say, indicate preparations for a new offensive that normally comes with summer.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to determine where we are and what exactly is going to happen.
Sure.
What is important is it seems that Mr. Putin is not in a hurry to go anywhere in terms of even a ceasefire. He seems to be playing the process, saying things, doing things, but not committing to anything at this stage.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
It's a very good morning to you as we kick off with soccer news. It's Tottenham Hotspur who have won the UEFA Europa League final. They beat, Manchester United 1-0 in the Spanish city of Bilbao, earning the first major title for Tottenham since they lifted the English League Cup in 2008 and the first European win since their second UEFA Cup win, the equivalent of the Europa League now, and that was in 1984. Let's hear now from their player, Kevin Danso, the Tottenham Hotspur defender.
Yeah, unbelievable feeling, of course. It's been a tough season for all of us. In the league, we didn't perform really well. Everybody was doubting us. But I think we all proved them wrong. And today we're here, we're lifting the trophy, and we made some history for the club. So that's, of course, an unbelievable feeling. We as a group, we stayed together also, and we kept believing. And till the day of today, we kept believing that we could create history with this group, and we did it today.
Meanwhile, we've got news from Manchester City midfielder Phil Foden has blamed a combination of off-field distractions and fitness problems for a hugely disappointing season. The England international was crowned the Premier League Player of the Year last season as he led City's charge to an unprecedented fourth consecutive title. However, Pep Guardiola's men will finish the campaign without a major trophy for the first time since 2016-2017 and still need a point on the final day of the Premier League to secure a place in next season's Champions League. Cricket news, Captain George van Heerden led a sound batting reply as South Africa's emerging men reached 149 for 3 at the close of the second day of the first four-day match against Bangladesh emerging. All happened at the Zahur Ahmed Chowdhury Stadium in Chattogram yesterday. And finally, cycling, Richard Carapaz has won stage 11 of the Giro d'Italia as the Mexican rider Isaac Del Toro kept hold of his overall lead in the Grand Tour. Former Giro champion Carapaz claimed his first win of the year. And this is attacking from the peloton 9 kilometers from the finish line on a tough 186-kilometer ride. We'll be riding back. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa has summed up the bilateral meeting with US President Donald Trump as a success. Ramaphosa addressed the media following a closed-door meeting with Trump. He also praised his delegation, which consisted of 4 ministers as well as business people, golfers and trade union representatives. National Treasury and provincial treasuries have identified over 312 billion rand in wasteful spending on non-performing programs since 2013. And the Mthatha Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape is expected to hear closing arguments today in the bail application of a 54-year-old Walter Sisulu University staff member accused of fatally shooting a student. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a busy one across Joburg with some collision scenes at exactly the wrong places. One is the N1 South at Buccleuch, just coming down towards the off-ramp to the N1 N3. So right at Buccleuch interchange. Queues already pushing back through Allendale Road, and also a crash on the N3 North at Heldney. So coming out of Germiston, Alberton, some pressure there as well. Durban's N2 going north has reopened. It opened late this morning between Toti and Prospector, but you can get through now. But there was also a crash in that area on the N2 North at Adam Adams Road. So still some queuing pressure coming into Durban off the south coast up through Amanzimtoti. Cape Town, Baden-Powell, fairly heavily backed as you loop through towards Strandfontein Road this morning. Just coming through from Mitchell's Plain, that's a bit busy. And the M7 and Velter-Vreden Road, both of those options coming out of Mitchell's Plain towards Philippi being held up. M7 into the construction, and Velter-Vreden, well, that's just motorists creating a secondary queue, trying to avoid the roadworks on the M7. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning, let's say good morning to Ndawling Lechela. Ndawling, let's start with news to do with Nike. Tell me about their plans to sell products on Amazon again. I didn't know that they had stopped.
Well, they stopped when, I think, end of 2019, beginning of 2020, when they wanted to start selling all their products directly from their own store and on their own website. This was an attempt to curb all the counterfeit products. So now they're reviving their partnership with Amazon, resuming direct sales on the platform in the US after a 6-year hiatus. Now, the sneaker giant had cut ties with Amazon in 2019, of course, due to concerns, as I mentioned, over counterfeit products, instead focusing on direct-to-consumer sales to gain greater control over the shopping experience. Now, Nike is investing in its marketplace and expanding 2 new digital accounts, including Amazon, to bring more products and services to customers. Amazon will soon start sourcing a wider range of Nike products, directly expanding its selection for US consumers. Now, this move is a win for Amazon, which has been trying to attract high-end brands to its platform and follows the launch of its luxury fashion shops, including a recent partnership with Saks Fifth Avenue. And with this new deal, Nike products will be more widely available on Amazon, and although the extent of the product range is yet to be confirmed and seen.
And then tell me about Rhodes Foods and their performance. You're saying that they've been weighed to some extent by their international unit.
That's right, Sulas. Now, the food producer that, provides canned food products to the likes of Woolworths and ShopRite has reported a decline in earnings for its first half, pointing to softer global demand and changing market dynamics that impacted its international segment. The group reported a 3.5% increase in revenue to 4 billion rand, but earnings fell 11.9% to 231 million rand. The regional segment performed well with a 7.6% revenue increase, driven by volume growth in fresh and long-life foods. Fresh foods, particularly ready meals and pies, showed significant growth, while long-life foods saw double-digit revenue growth in fruit juice, dry foods, and pulps and purees. But the international segment's revenue fell over 17% due to weaker export volumes and the impact of last year's drought in Eswatini on pineapple supplies. Despite the challenges, though, the group expects the regional segment's momentum to continue into the second half of the year and expects that to then boost earnings for the full year period.
So there was a lot of activity yesterday in Ndawling. How did it impact the market?
All right, kicking things off and looking at how markets in the U.S. closed overnight, the sell-off on that front gained traction, sending the Dow Jones to its steepest daily decline in a month, down 1.9%. The spotlight remains on U.S. President Donald Trump's tax bill that is expected to be voted on this week in Congress, and investors are worried it could add about $3.8 trillion to the $36 trillion U.S. debt pile. The mood, however, different here at home, with stocks upbeat. That's as the inflation remains below the SARB's target range of 3 to 6% at 2.8% in April. Markets were also digesting the budget. With that, we saw the all-share gaining 0.38%. Meanwhile, in the currency scene, the rand still holding up well, trading below the 18 rand mark to the dollar at 17.96 this hour. Then over in Asia, stock markets are trading mostly lower, following broadly negative cues from Wall Street overnight. This, of course, amid rising treasury yields on concerns about the fiscal impact of the new U.S. tax bill on the country's deficit.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauling Lechela. She'll be back with more insights for you in the second hour of the show, just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning. So, just recently we saw Burkina Faso talking about a potential attempt to oust Captain Traore and linking that to, elements that were said to be in Cote d'Ivoire. Now it's Cote d'Ivoire itself talking about a potential coup plot that they say they've foiled. Tell me about this coup plot.
Refreshing morning, Tulas and Jumbo Africa, to the listeners. Tulas, what we are picking up in the social media since yesterday, you will hear that there are rumors that there was a coup against President Alassane Ouattara. He has fled the country, which is not true, Tulas. When you look at the fake news, misinformation, disinformation, there are pictures also that shows Traore in the meeting of the cabinet yesterday, Tulas, engaging on challenges that are facing Ivory Coast. But this has been foiled by the Ivory Coast Armed Forces yesterday, saying that there was a plot actually that was planned towards the end of the year, masterminded by militant and unnamed political party, which they are currently now protecting that individual as a person of interest. You'll understand also, Tulas, why these issues of coup in Ivory Coast are in the social media. Is what we have said earlier about the Sahel region. But the social media platforms, the X, Facebook, TikTok, mainstream media, have been using this as rumors. We know that Ivory Coast next week, Tulas, there's an annual meeting of Africa Development Bank, and there have to be a new president who is expected to be now coming in the foot of Adesanya, who will be leaving, who have served the 2 terms. But the issue is also you have coup plotters of Burkina Faso who are hiding in Ivory Coast. So there's a complexity to understand the current situation in Abidjan, but rumors that are saying president is out of the country are not correct.
All right. So let's turn to South Sudan then. Tell me about the reshuffle that that country's President Salva Kiir has implemented, at least in the leadership of his governing party.
Tulas, you will understand that Salva Kiir, there are issues of the rumors of brink of civil war in the South Sudan. He put his successor, Bol Mel, who has been sanctioned by the U.S., by the way, in 2017 over issues of money laundering, construction companies. But now being a deputy chairperson of SPLM as a party, it means that when Salva Kiir is not capable, Tulas, he'll be the acting president to take the country to the elections. We still know that the first vice president, Riek Machar, should have been one of the person within the SPLM. Whether as factions, he could be the one who will deputize Riek Machar. Who will deputize Salva Kiir. But we don't see that coming out. It's very clear to us. But the current reshuffle, it has happened also in some of the former second vice president, also James Wani Iga. He has also been removed, as there are 3 other veterans of the movement who has been demoted. So Salva Kiir is shifting powers to us in Juba, but there's still uncertainty about this brink of a civil war.
And in the DRC, the courts meting out some consequences over this $245 million corruption scandal. Tell me a bit more about that.
And Tulas is very sad. It's on an agricultural project. How do we promote food security in Africa when we have spoilers and corruptees? Coming also from South Africa, there's a businessman from South Africa, Christo Grobler, Tulas, who was also sentenced yesterday, former central bank governor of DRC, Mutombo, the former prime minister under the presidency of Kabila, Matata Ponyo Mapona, who has been given 10 years of forced labor to us for embezzling. You see, to us, we played nicely with legal language. Even if you steal money, we use the word embezzlement of funds. So embezzling 245 million to us, and that's how this case has been going on during Tshisekedi's era. And as we know, these are the challenges that are facing DRC and Africa to us. Grobler is still in South Africa, Mutombo in Belgium. So you don't know when you pass such sentence on commercial crimes to us why there is no consequences.
Yeah. Before you tell me about your historical archives, Sipho, I've got to tell you a story. What you're going to mention, Mount Nyiragongo in the DRC. I've seen, having been to Goma, obviously, I've seen the lasting impact that eruption, and it wasn't this one that you're going to mention, but a previous one, the lasting impact that it had on that city, how the flow of lava carved out a pathway across the city and deposited, it's almost like rocks really when the lava hardens. And then I remember, I think I've gone there twice, and I used to think one of the first things that strikes you is just how hard it is to even walk because of these rocks that are all over the place, thanks to that lava that is now hardened. Tell me about this in your historical archives, 22 May 2021.
Tulas, I had to do that because I don't know when was it when you went to the DRC. I went there in 2006, and I've seen Mount Nyiragongo. There was an observatory team that was observing the Goma volcano observatory team, but they have given the warnings actually during this month. During that month in 2021, on the 22nd of May. So, what has happened there, Tulas, is that it was on this day, almost 4 years ago, when the flank of Mount Nyiragongo, erupted and the lava began to flow towards the city of Goma. And we know it's about 20 kilos towards the south. People have to be evacuated. We have known it for many years, Tulas. In 2020 also, you'll recall, even also after elections in 2006, Tulas, in 2007, there was eruption. But the next one that are being even predicted when you look at the years, Tulas, it was March 2024 last year, but November 2027 also, we might have another eruption in Nyiragongo. That's why it's very good for the avocado, Tulas, and for Moringa of the Eastern DRC, to be honest with you. Asante sana, especially in the conversation, SFM observing the Africa Month.
Thank you for that. That's Sipho Mandula there with your Africa update.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chatel Rosabelle and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
As a business owner, I've noticed how being energy efficient has improved my savings and the growth of my business. You too can improve your margins by adopting energy efficient behaviors. Simply switch to energy saving lighting, switch off non-essential equipment, and maintain HVAC systems. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to see your business soar as well as contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. Eskom.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
We love rating things, our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
14 minutes to 7. Let's turn our attention to issues out of education now. The Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Kwagube, has voiced deep concern over the growing wave of bullying and violence in the country's schools, following the arrest of 7 teenage girls seen assaulting a peer in a viral video. Kwagube is warning that punitive measures alone are not enough and called for urgent, holistic action from schools, parents, and communities. So let's get some insights into the thinking of the department around this problem. I'm joined by Sfiso Ngobese, who is Director for School Safety at the Department of Basic Education. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Just your overall sense of the problem. Is it widening, is it deepening, and is it escalating, the problem of school violence and bullying?
Thank you very much and good morning to you, Thulas, and your listeners. When we look, for example, at the issues of violence in schools, over time, we have seen that it has decreased generally.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also aware that we have challenges when it comes to bullying. And, with bullying, it's so difficult because often it happens and in some cases you'll find that it is not reported. But generally, when you look at the general household survey, it will show you that in terms of violence in schools, we are on the decline. But we do note the surge in numbers when it comes to bullying in schools.
Yeah. Look, I don't envy the portfolio that you look after, Sfiso, because I was just thinking through what we're talking about when we're talking about safety in schools. Gender-based violence as it manifests in schools, corporal punishment instances, issues of gangsterism, drug usage, theft, burglaries, bullying as well. Which one of these concerns you the most in terms of the trends at the moment?
You know, from other studies as well, we have seen that generally violence has gone down, particularly corporal punishment. I think we are winning a battle there as a department because we are seeing that, yes, it is still happening, and we get reports of certain areas where teachers are still using corporal punishment. But in the main, we are seeing a decline, and I think we are attributing to the fact that the programs that we have instituted as a department are actually assisting us in terms of seeing these numbers decrease. However, we have to bring everybody else around the issues of bullying. And you are right, Thulas, it is quite a portfolio because challenges don't stop coming from those different segments.
So at a practical level, what should be happening in instances like this video that went viral that we're reporting about? Where do you identify the failures and lapses there, and who should have done what? Such that, you know, when you answer that question, it then empowers other school governing bodies, other schooling communities as to, you know, what their rights and responsibilities are in relation to this issue.
Yeah, you know, when it comes to schooling, the general administration of the school, you know, goes a long way, because if you have strong management team at a school, starting from the governance of the school, the management, the principal, and the SMT, if you have got a solid leadership at a school, where instances of transgression are really taken serious, you know, starting from minor transgressions such as maybe not handing your work at school, where a learner knows that he is going to be, or he or she is going to be in trouble. You know, we tend to see a very low numbers when it comes to violent behavior and bullying. But schools generally, where you find that the management of the school is a little bit lacking, I will use that word, we do experience, you know, some of other challenges as well.
Yeah. So one of my listeners pushing back against your assertion, Sfiso, that on the overall, over a period of time, school violence is on the decline, saying that, you know, school violence is on the increase. So just grapple with that, because there is that perception. I mean, recently, and I was trying to look it up now, but I don't have the time to get to it. We were reporting a figure that says there's been quite a number of incidents that have happened in the beginning of this year, since the beginning of this year, and we're 5 months into the new year. You're not seeking to downplay the extent of the problem, are you?
No. Oh, no, we don't. In fact, we need all hands on the deck. Even some of our strategies and measures that we are trying to put in place, you will actually see that they are intended to solve the problem rather than trying to downplay it.
All right. But what are the figures that have been reported to you in terms of the number of incidents that have been reported since the beginning of the year?
From the beginning of the year, I know that we reported 548. Those were the reported ones. But I must indicate that even today, we are meeting with the provinces, and we might be getting more other figures than that have happened at a later time. But the figures that we reported in Parliament were around 548 cases of bullying that we reported in the beginning of the year.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time. That's Fiso Ngobese. He's Director for School Safety at the Department of Basic Education.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Crash on Joburg's N3 running north. It's at Heldney interchange. If you're coming out of Germiston, Alberton this morning through Elands, expect some delays there. Crash on the N1 south. It's on the ramp as you come off at Buccleuch to the N1 and N3. So a bit of pressure coming down from Allendale, approaching that off-ramp. Durban, inbound on the N3. There's been a collision at Spaghetti Junction, so watch for some delays on that run-in from the Pinetown side this morning through Paradise Valley and down through Pavilion. And a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction on the N2, so coming through from Magena Road. Some delays there. Quite a bad crash involving a taxi on Cape Town's N7. It's between Plattekloof Road and Bloberg, and Bosmansdam Road. So the N7 southbound towards Edgemead and north towards the sort of Tableview exit. Delays and queuing traffic both directions at that scene. And the R300 pretty slow this morning, queuing up through Delft towards Stellenbosch Arterial Road. Also, if you have anything to do with Cape Gates during the morning rush hour, if you come through there out towards work or you're working in Cape Gate, no lights at Okavango and De Bron, so there's already some heavy traffic building up around that busy junction near the big mall area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba! as they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The boys of Flavu Davids are searching for 2 early goals to get back to the game in Zanzibar. But their Moroccan visitors want to finish off what they started in Pikani. Wekundu Wamsimbazi battles it out with the Orange Boys. This is the second leg final contest of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Do not miss out on the spectacular clash of African football. Simba Sports Club versus RSP Pikani FC. This Sunday, 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
South Africans don't like to talk about Say what? Mara FYI, our financial confidence is... and our financial anxiety, it's an F show.
Or is it? See, just talking about our finances can build confidence and make us better at managing them.
This is exciting. Welcome to your Fintervention, Mzansi.
It's our way to get you talking, laughing, and learning about.
Start now at livewithconfidence.co.za. Sanlam. Live with confidence. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services, and registered credit provider.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
I said it, I want them out, get them out. Those were the unambiguous orders from Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie last week while he was addressing the leaders of entities reporting to his department. Who does he want out? Foreign nationals working in those entities. Well, he was telling the CEOs and chairpersons of those entities that they have 3 weeks to remove all foreign nationals from these entities from their positions. And this has not gone down well among some activists and artists, if for nothing else but for his failure to differentiate between various categories of foreign nationals, documented versus undocumented, on work visas versus permanent resident. A few activists raising questions about the instruction's lawfulness and, quite frankly, accusing him of xenophobia. Let's welcome Nicole Fritz, who is the Executive Director at the Campaign for Free Expression. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Just in your own words, how do these comments and what seems to be a directive, how does it sit with you?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Good morning to the listeners. Thank you for having us. We have issued a statement taking exception and protesting these directives issued by the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture on the basis that they are blatantly unlawful. They look to perpetuate hatred. They're unlawful, explicitly against our Constitution. Persons who are here legally, who have the required authorization, are permitted to work. Our labor laws, our Constitution, in terms of giving labor laws, applies to everyone within the territory of South Africa. The directive to the CEOs of these entities that they dismiss foreigners is itself without any legal authority. The minister does not have the powers to bypass the Public Finance Management Act and to bypass lawful grievance and disciplinary measures. And it shows him to be totally irresponsible as to his duties of financial stewardship in respect of the money held and overseen by the department. If these directives were to be implemented, the entities would be hit by multiple legal challenges and almost certainly would lose, and that would be hugely costly in respect of finite public resources, and ultimately it shows him to be entirely oblivious to the demands of his portfolio. Arts and culture is a sector which requires the engagement of persons. I mean, culture and arts thrive in a sector where there is free movement of people and ideas, and the idea that people who are perfectly lawfully here should be terminated and should be purged from that space to desecrate that space.
You're not oblivious, are you, Nicole, to the concern, that the broader concern, societal concern, which has become a political issue about the levels of uncontrolled, irregular and undocumented and illegal migration in the country, which I think is part of the reason why his message would resonate among some quarters. You're not oblivious to that problem, are you?
Absolutely, absolutely not. And there's no call that on the part of those who have signed this statement that any sector, let alone the Department of Arts, of Sports, Arts and Culture, employ people who are here illegally, who have not been given authorization to work. It is that only that those who are here legally, who have scrupulously observed our laws, who have the required permits, be entitled to work. And this directive issued by the minister seeks to make no determination between those groups, right? It's just a blanket directive that those who are here perfectly legally should be terminated, and that the CEOs should face, if they don't undertake this directive, that they should face dismissal themselves. We saw last night, right? Our government ambushed with this, accusation that they are perpetrating hatred. I mean, we know South Africa has many challenges, but we know that to be nonsense, what they were ambushed with at the White House. The last thing that we need is our government and members of those governments suggesting that we are engaging in entirely unconstitutional, unlawful hate and discrimination against persons who are here legally and who are contributing to our communities and to our country and to our arts and culture sector.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. That is Nicole Fritz, who is the Executive Director of the Campaign for Free Expression. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, President Ramaphosa emphasizing U.S. importance within the G20 and body of missing Mpumalanga patient found. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa has summed up the bilateral meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump as a success. Ramaphosa addressed the media following a closed-door meeting with Trump. He praised his delegation, which consisted of 4 ministers as well as business people, golfers and trade union representatives. Ramaphosa says a variety of issues were discussed and there was an agreement to continue engaging, especially on issues of trade. He also emphasized the crucial role the U.S. plays within the G20 framework.
My takeaway from that is that G20 participation by the United States is going to be happening. So we're particularly pleased with that. So all in all, I do believe that our visit here has been a great success. We've been able to achieve what we set out to achieve re-engagement with the U.S., to put the issues of investment and trade on the table, and to ensure that we continue engaging.
Meanwhile, Trump confronted President Ramaphosa with false claims of white genocide. He played a video clip that included EFF leader Julius Malema chanting the struggle song Kill the Boer to substantiate his claim that white farmers in South Africa were being targeted. Trump also presented newspaper clippings of crime in South Africa.
When you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what it is. And I have other friends in South Africa, I have people that left, one in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land, and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now, we're going to talk about it, but this is a tremendous, look, this is a story recent. These are all people that recently got killed. And I don't know how it can get any worse.
National Treasury and provincial treasuries have identified over 312 billion rand in wasteful spending on non-performing programs since 2013. Government spending is estimated to reach nearly 2.6 trillion rand in the 2025-2026 financial year, with social services accounting for more than half of the spending. Government says a cut in spending on non-performing programs will override the need for higher taxes going forward. Deputy Finance Minister David Masondo.
And National Treasury, we've been undertaking spending reviews from 2000. The key issue is how those spending reviews are treated by accounting officers and departments. There's so much we can do from our side, but departments are responsible for cutting fat and waste in the way in which they spend public funds. And the President, working with National Treasury, will also be working hard to make sure that we cut waste.
Meanwhile, Action SA says it's highly regrettable that Treasury decided to increase the fuel levy, as it will directly impact the poor and working class who spend most of their income on transport. Beasley says a fuel levy increase of 16 cents per litre to 4.01 cents is not a decision the party is happy with. Police in Mpumalanga have discovered the body of a 51-year-old patient who was reported missing at the Tonga Hospital in Nkomazi earlier this month. The decomposed body of Tina Ntimane was discovered near the hospital premises. Ntimane went missing about 3 weeks ago while wearing a hospital gown. Police say Ntimane's body was found still dressed in the gown. And finally, the Mthatha Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape is expected to hear closing arguments today in the bail application of a 54-year-old Walter Sisulu University staff member accused of fatally shooting a student. The accused is facing charges of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. 24-year-old student Sisonke Mbolekwa was allegedly shot and killed, while 2 other students were injured during a protest against poor living conditions at the university's residence. Mqimbisi Ngqingwa filed this report.
The state is opposing bail for the accused, saying he might tamper with evidence as he allegedly instructed his subordinates to remove cartridges from the crime scene and deregister the deceased as a student. The state also alleges the accused might obstruct justice as the firearm allegedly used in the crime was found in Port Alfred, and if he is released on bail he might not be safe as the community is still angry with him. but the accusers denied these allegations, saying he was acting in self-defense as his life was in danger and he could have died that day.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has summed up the bilateral meeting with US President Donald Trump as a success. Ramaphosa addressed the media following a closed-door meeting with Trump. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
This just in, Zandile, a 36-year-old woman, has added an unbelievable 918 rand a month more money to her budget. That's right, she switched to Outsurance and now saves 918 rand a month on her 2024 Cherry Tiggo 1.5 litre. Nice one, Zandile. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you could pay less? Switch to Outsurance today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, Soccer News, Orlando Pirates say they still have much to fight for, and we'll also bring you jubilation for Tottenham Hotspur as they take down Manchester United. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Major delays getting into Durban this morning. A vehicle on its roof at Spaghetti Junction. The N3 coming in from Pavilion Mall from Paradise Valley. About a 40-minute queue is a minimum to get through at this stage. That is very heavy. Cape Town, a couple of big crashes. One on the N7. This is between Bosmansdam Road and Plattekloof Road. Very substantial backlogs both ways, either coming from the Plattekloof Road on-ramp out of Tableview or heading north from the N1 highway up through Bosmansdam towards that. You might want to avoid the N7, and if you're driving around the R300 stuck in traffic, that's a collision just before Stellenbosch Arterial Road. Traffic all the way back towards the N2. Traffic piling up again, about a plus 30-minute delay to work through that northbound R300 from Delft towards Cales River. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Thursday. It's good to be in your company. We're into the second hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. Here's what's coming up. We'll focus a little bit on the budget. They're calling it Budget 3.0. The third take, it would seem it was third time lucky for the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, yesterday delivering a budget that it would seem will enjoy the support of the critical mass of political parties in the National Assembly, such that it will then be passed. Of course, it had been caucused and there had been much, consultation ahead of that budget. The key highlights as well as the lowlights. I'll be in conversation with Dr. Lumkile Mondi, who is a political economist and senior lecturer at the senior lecturer of economics and business science at Wits University. Among what we will tease out is this question of whether or not this is an austerity budget. The minister insisting yesterday this is not an austerity budget and insisting that this is an expansionary budget. But is it? Lumkile Mondi will weigh in over the next few minutes. And then shortly after that, we'll talk to SABC News international editor Sophie Mkwena about that meeting that took place initially, that public interaction which became tense at times, which was taking place between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the US President Donald Trump, happening in the Oval Office. But subsequent to that, they were able to get into some other engagements behind closed doors. And you heard, and as you heard there in that reporting in the news, President Ramaphosa saying that overall he's satisfied with what they were able to achieve during this visit. I want you to weigh in on these and other issues that we are covering this morning, as well as any other issues that may be occupying your mind. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. Let's engage. So the second hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
The boys of Thulasizwe Davids are searching for 2 early goals to get back to the game in Zanzibar. But their Moroccan visitors want to finish off what they started in Pikani. Wekundu Wamsimbazi battles it out with the Orange Boys. This is the second leg final contest of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Do not miss out on the spectacular clash of African football. Simba Sports Club versus RSP Pikani FC. This Sunday, 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, we're just battling to connect with Lumkile Mondi, but let me just tell you what we were going to be talking about. We were going to be talking about the finance minister's national budget, which was delivered in Cape Town yesterday after months of political wrangling over tax policy and spending priorities. And among the highlights really that came through from that budget yesterday, a revision downward of our GDP growth, and the expectation there revised from 1.9% to 1.4% for the year 2025, as well as the levels of debt, indebtedness that we face. The debt to GDP now at 77.4% in the 2025-2026 financial year. But in terms of the measures to try and balance the books, the main proposal was around an increase in the general fuel levy, which will be to 16 cents a litre on petrol and 15 cents a litre on diesel, and that will be effective from the 4th of June. And overall, just cuts here and there in a number of programs, spending programs as far as government is concerned. In fact, we are told some 200 billion rand over 3 years are the cuts that will be implemented to try and make it all work out, seeing as there's no VAT increase on the books now after all of that engagement. All right, I don't know if is just waiting for a signal from Stanza. Stanza, is that Lumkile Mondi on the line, or do we have Sophie Mkwen? Yeah. So let's move on. Let's speak to our international editor, Sophie Mkwena. Well, what was meant to be an ordinary media session in the White House's Oval Office ahead of the private talks between President Ramaphosa and his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, quickly turned into a relentless myth and debunking, allegation and rebuttal, and disinformation and fact-checking session between the two leaders. It started on a cordial enough note, with Ramaphosa outlining the areas of trade, investment, global conflict resolution that he hoped they would cover in their private talks, and Trump, for a change, appearing to be listening and gracious. But it quickly heated up, and I want to play you a clip of how it all unfolded during that meeting. It quickly heated up when President Trump confronted President Ramaphosa with false claims of a white Afrikaner genocide and almost ambushed him with press reports and a video mashup of clips of EFF leader Julius Malema. I want you to take a listen to how that played out.
I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and is Natalie here, somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and it has to be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one.
Yeah, so that's just an excerpt of that interaction. Let's speak now to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mkwena. Sophie, good morning. Just your overall key takeouts from that interaction. It happened in the Oval Office, but then later on President Ramaphosa telling us that further they then had discussions in a closed door session over lunch.
Yes, I think some of us, we were anticipating a very hostile reception, a low-key reception, as we saw with some of the leaders visiting the White House. But to my surprise, when I saw the arrangements outside and the normal way of receiving leaders that he interacts with and where there's cordial relationship. Even inside, Trump emphasizing how good Ramaphosa is. People are saying he's a good man, but a minority say he is not good. And then he said, like myself, people say I'm good, some of them not. So I thought it will go well. And they both spoke passionately. They brought in the sports, which was a catalyst. And when he opened the floor for questions, that's where things went a bit south, particularly that question on the genocide. And then the president pushing back. When the president was pushing back, then he played the video to try to present evidence. Now, South Africa knew, everybody knew that Trump was going to touch on that. The issue that many people, even the media, didn't anticipate was the video. However, the content, it's not new because it's snippets and clips of what we've broadcasted, except that video of the cross in the road. And we know that it's an old video. Therefore, that moment, that's when things went very, very shaky. But it didn't generate to mudslinging and shouting between the two because the delegation of South Africa did contain the emotions and that did help. And from there, I think the objective set by South Africa to open the channel, to discuss G20, and to look ahead and try to push back, even though they didn't want to drag this issue because they knew you can't change Trump on that. The objectives were met. The issue is, will the South African government meet its aims, the long term? That's the implementation.
Talk to me a bit more, Sophie, about the dynamics of the delegation. We saw Johan Rupert, being among those, any else, Retief Goosen, and then Zingiswa Losi of COSATU being given a platform to express themselves. Lots of reaction to how each one of them acquitted themselves.
Yes, we knew 3 weeks ago that Trump has made a request that the president must bring golfers. These are the people he often engage with, in terms of playing golf in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, his private residence. Any else actually is helping him. He trained him. And we know that he also wanted Gary Blair, but Gary Blair is senior and the children were not at ease to send him to the US. We are told he's in Japan. The surprise for me was Retief Goosen. And then the issue of Johan Rupert. Johan Rupert has been working behind the scenes to try and assist to mend the relations between South Africa and the United States of America. They do speak with Trump. And for me, the very same guy is the one I can say when you leave the president, a star performer was Rupert on these issues. He was clear there's no genocide. It's everybody who's affected, black and white. And the issue is you have to address crime. And we knew one day this issue of crime will catch up with South Africa. You may differ in terms of how it should be done. So for him to dismiss the genocide and targeting of white people in particular, that was a big, big issue. And we are told behind the scenes, Trump did accept that now he understands better. I'm not convinced about the two golfers. Any else even talking about how America supported them during Angola? I mean, how can you say that you proud America supported South Africa? South Africa at that time was fighting the liberation organizations. So I think because he's not a politician, he was not well briefed. That Minister Steenhuisen, I think he became too political, targeting the two political parties in the video, MK and the EFF. That moment wasn't about that because people voted and they've made their choices. He was not really, for me, convincing in dismissing the genocide issue properly. That is why Johan Rupert came back and almost called him out to say, in your province where your party govern, people are dying in Mitchell's Plain, and it's not white people, proving the point that the deaths, it's crime. Our crime is horrible. It's out of control. So that is why I'm saying you may differ on the posture of Rupert, his background and all the dynamics. He was even emotional when he was talking about how he often gets attacked. But the truth of the matter is that this has got nothing to do with genocide. He lives in his farm and he's safe and he's building cottages for his children, emphasizing that, yes, we have a problem, but our country is not almost like a genocide territory.
So, Sophie, the way this was billed by the presidency was that it was an opportunity to, quote-unquote, reset the relationship. And then later on, President Ramaphosa, after that interaction in the Oval Office, as well as the interaction over lunch, then addressed a media briefing in which he outlined what they were able to talk about. And I think he emphasized issues of continued engagement on trade and investment.
Yes, remember the main objective of South Africa was to go and negotiate trade, particularly at the time where AGOA is for renewal in September. And if it's not renewed abruptly, you are going to deal with lots of job losses within the motor industry in Roslyn, in PE, in East London. And these are Africans who are working there. The workforce is majority black. So you are going to increase this poverty on citrus farms. Yes, the farmers are going to lose, the very same farmers. And secondly, people who are working there, you may have issues in terms of labor relations and other products that we send to the US. But above all, the research. Most of institutions of higher learning partner with the US on science and research. Right now, the cancer treatment and research, South Africa is leading on that. That's why Biden, because he lost his son due to cancer, gave the South African institutions more money to do more research on cancer. I'm not even touching on the NGOs that were doing work in the communities and doing away with that US aid had crippled the NGOs also, or civil society. So there's a lot at stake. America is our second largest trading partner. And therefore, and when you look at America, there's more acceptance to build capacity and manufacturing in the country rather than dumping goods. So I think the issue is, how do I ensure that I protect it? I'm already having challenges in my country with the economy. So these other issues are a side show, and it would have been a bonus if Trump had in the Oval Office in front of the media accepted that there's no genocide. It would have been a bonus. We knew we were engaging the embassy here, some of us. We knew that you can't lecture him when his mind is made.
Yeah. All right, Sophie, thank you for that. That's Sophie Mkwena, SABC News international editor there, unpacking that visit. What a moment it was for South Africa on the international stage.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, good morning to you, Zai. So, Orlando Pirates safe and secure in second spot, are they?
Yeah, they're not playing for silverware anymore, maybe just for some silver linings. They've locked and loaded their second place position. Their coach, Mandla Ntshikazi, insisting there's plenty to play for. The Buccaneers, earlier beat SuperSport United 1-0, trimming the gap to the champion Sundowns and setting a new PSL era winning record. Goalkeeper Siyabonga Dladla, he kept a clean sheet on full debut, while the rising star Simphiwe Selepe earned another player of the match nod. With 2 matches left, Pirates are chasing club pride. Let's go to Kaizer Chiefs now. Their midfielder George Matlu says, having grown up in church, he's left his future with the club in the hands of God. The 26-year-old is one of the players whose contract is coming to an end.
Yes, my contract is coming to an end this coming June, but I'm going to leave that of course, to God, as I said, because I'm one person who grew up in church, so I would give everything to God, and of course, most definitely to the technical team, to everyone, the board and stuff, to give me the opportunity if they do. But it's football, so I'm not going to plan for the future now. But my focus now is win the Saturday's game to get into the top 8.
Elsewhere, Brennan Johnson's scrappy first-half goal fired Tottenham to their first trophy in 17 years with a 1-0 Europa League final win over Manchester United. And go to rugby, the Stormers, they host Leinster, while the Sharks, they are, travelling to Glasgow. It's a blockbuster opening weekend of the 2025-26 URC season. In another round matches, that's one involving SA teams, the Bulls will host the Ospreys with the Lions at Cardiff. Now, this is the campaign that is set to kick off on the 26th of September. And finally, tennis news. Novak Djokovic finally winning a match on clay this season. He beat Martin Fucsovics 6-2, 6-3 in the second round of a rainy Geneva Open. And in the women's draw, we've got the world number 30, Anna Kalinskaya, stunning the world number 1, Jessica Pegula, and that's at the Strasbourg Open quarterfinal, 4-6, 6-4, 6-2. More sport, we'll serve it to you. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa summed up the bilateral meeting with US President Donald Trump as a success. Ramaphosa addressed the media following a closed-door meeting with Trump. EFF leader Julius Malema says the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has reneged on extending the zero VAT-rated list. Godongwana delivered this year's budget speech to the National Assembly in Cape Town yesterday. And 2 City of Cape Town law enforcement officers are due to appear in the Khayelitsha Magistrates Court on the Cape Flats today on charges of kidnapping and extortion. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a busy Thursday. Just been a collision on the M1 North driving into Pretoria. This is blocking multiple lanes approaching Rigel Avenue very quickly. The traffic parking back through the R21 and working back to Buerta Avenue. If you're on the M1 North, try and come off at John Foster or Buerta Avenue or R21 if you've missed those, and just avoid it. Most of those lanes, 3 lanes, are currently closed. Major delays going into Durban with a temporary closure of the N3 a short time ago. At Spaghetti Junction to recover a vehicle that ended up on its roof there. I think they've got one lane open, but it's a major backlog this morning coming in from Pinetown along the N3. Spine Road, very heavy, both sides of the N3 with motorists diverting in the M13, taking a real battering from Westville through Sherwood. Of course, you've got the roadworks on the N2 and all that traffic diverting off from the N3, causing mayhem on the M13. So very heavy traffic between Pinetown and Durban. Also, crash M4, Southern Freeway inbound before Quality Street, that run up through Jacobs area. Very slow in Cape Town. A taxi collision, N7 between Bosmansdam Road and Plattekloof Road, heavy both ways into that particular scene, and a crash on the R300 going north before Stellenbosch Arterial is being cleared to the side. All lanes are open, but it's a heavy backlog arriving up from the N2 passing Delft up in towards that Cales River area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, let's start in the financial services sector. Tell me about Sanlam and Time Bank combining forces to play better, perhaps, within the lending space.
That's right, Sula. So Sanlam and Time Bank are teaming up to form a retail credit joint venture that will offer unsecured personal loans with an embedded credit life insurance component. Now, the partnership will see the creation of a new joint venture company that will focus on the competitive unsecured personal loan market in the country. Sanlam Personal Loans will contribute its existing loan generation business, excluding its retail credit loan book, to the JV in exchange for shares. Time Bank will acquire 50% of the shares in the JV for 31.5 million rands and will also purchase 50% of Sanlam's credit loan book for about 400 million rands plus the capital value. Now, the JV will allow both companies to leverage their complementary customer bases and skill sets to drive growth and offer a competitive unsecured lending product under the respective brands. Now, Sanlam CEO Paul Hanratty has previously expressed a preference for partnerships over becoming a full-scale bank, and this JV aligns with that strategy. The deal is also quite notable given that Time Bank's majority owner, Patrice Motsepe's African Rainbow Capital Investments, is a significant shareholder in Sanlam, with Ubuntu Moto Investments owning 14% of the group. To address potential conflicts of interest, Sanlam has established a committee of independent non-executive directors to oversee the deal.
And then in travel and tourism, tell me about Southern Sun. You're saying that they've posted some good gains in earnings.
That's right, Les, and this comes as it's lifted its overall hotel occupancy rate above 60% in the first half of the year. And this is the first time this has happened since 2019. Now, the group reported an occupancy rate of 60.8%, and this for the full year period, with CEO Marcel van Olok attributing this success to a combination of factors, including government stability and economic growth. Van Olok believes that with more stability and lower interest rates, occupancies can be maintained in the mid to high 60% range in the medium term. Now, zooming in on those numbers, the group delivered a 20% increase in attributable profit. The company's strategy focuses on refurbishing and upgrading its existing portfolio of around 90 hotels, rather than expanding through new builds or acquisitions. And this approach seems to be paying off, with successful refurbishments at properties like Southern Sun, Cullinan and Sandton Towers, contributing to the increased occupancy and rate growth. Now, Van Olok highlighted the potential for further growth, particularly in Cape Town, where the company has a large portfolio of hotels that are trading well. But he noted that some regions, such as KZN and Mozambique, have been impacted by political instability and other challenges.
All right, lastly, Ndauling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
So concerns about the fiscal impacts of a new U.S. tax bill on the U.S.'s deficit has continued to weigh on sentiment, and that filtering through to Asian markets. This now, knocking those markets as the Chinese rate cut euphoria also fades there. The Japanese Nikkei hardest hits, closing down, not closing, but trading close to 8% lower. That downbeat mood also being seen in the U.S. with futures in the red this morning following yesterday's finish. Things different back at home. The JSE in the green as positive inflation numbers boosted local stocks and the rand. Traders also digesting budget 3.0. With that, the all share closed 0.38% higher in yesterday's session. While the rand remains strong this morning, it is trading at 17.97 to the dollar.
All right, Ndauling, we'll talk in the third hour. That's how Ndauling Lechela, always right on the money. She'll be back with one more update for you just after 8:30.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
The boys of Thulasizwe Davids are searching for 2 early goals to get back to the game in Zanzibar. But their Moroccan visitors want to finish off what they started in Pikani. Wekundu Wamsimbazi battles it out with the Orange Boys. This is the second leg final contest of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Do not miss out on the spectacular clash of African football. Simba Sports Club versus RSP Picard AFC. This Sunday, 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Have you heard the latest news, South Africa? Vincent, a 40-year-old man, wanted to save money on his car insurance premium, so he got a quote from Outsurance. Vincent now saves a massive 990 Rand a month on his 2022 Ford Ranger 2.2-litre. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Why pay more when you could pay less? Switch to Outsurance today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let's run through as many of your calls as possible. And as always, straight and direct to the point. Let's say good morning to Stembele then in the Eastern Cape. Good morning to you, Stembele. You want to talk to me about the budget. Straight to the point, please.
My coach. I think it's time for Ministerial to take a back seat now. Not because he has failed, but I think the man is old now.
Mm-hmm.
Our envoy to U.S., I think that
Mr. Jonas.
Mr. Jonas. He is being there, I think is of no use. I think that young man needs to be recalled and be reinstated back to that ministry. And I think with him at help, our economy can perform quite very well.
Wow.
I'm of the view that honestly, our lovely president, Mr. Ramaphosa, needs to sit down with his current minister of finance, and ask him to hang his coat now.
What about the budget yesterday made you, I don't know if you arrived at the conclusion yesterday or it's something that's been percolating in your mind for quite some time. What about yesterday really made you and drove you to this point? Because someone will say he was presenting a budget that had the approval of the entirety of cabinet made up of representatives from various parties. At least 10 parties are part of the GNU. So what is personal to him in terms of that budget and performance?
Makucho, I think he had no other options. I think that they had exhausted everything else that was available at their disposal. But I think it was because this increase of fuel levy makes no difference when it comes to to that of increasing VAT, because obviously it's still going to impact us negatively as poor, because the food prices will definitely increase because of this fuel levy.
All right.
So my take on that is that I think he is old, Chief. He needs to hang his boat now, because you've seen. I think Makuta, you saw him when he was being fixed by Khumbudzo Ntshavheni after the media briefing. He forgot his hat. Khumbudzo Ntshavheni put that hat nicely in his head.
Right.
And yesterday, Bengu Matsiri did exactly the same thing.
I've got to move on. Thank you for that. That's Tembele in the Eastern Cape there. Mfundo in Cape Town, you want to weigh in on the meeting in the Oval Office. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning, Thulasizwe. Just few takers from the meeting yesterday. Firstly, the one that I'm disappointed on Cyril Ramaphosa, the President, and John Steenhuisen, the Minister of Agriculture. Firstly, I think that for a bit, not EFFN, but for a bit, he could have defended the singing of the song by Malema, as declared by our Constitutional Court, that the song is not a hate speech. It reflects our history. I think he could have elaborated on that. Not necessarily the song that Malema sang is against the law. It has been declared by our Constitutional Court. So that's the first point on. But other than that, he was cool. He was collected. And also John Steenhuisen. John Steenhuisen, he was more political, more advancing DA position, more focusing on even mentioning stock theft. What about the killings? And I think social is going about now saying that Johan Rupert throw Steenhuisen under the bus. It was not necessarily throwing him under the bus because the man didn't want to come clean about what is happening in his own province. Johan Rupert did great, elaborated, stated clearly what is happening in the urban areas, Cape Flats overall. Zingiswa Losi went down to the rurals, very clear on what is happening on the crime. So overall, the meeting was disappointed on those two gentlemen.
Nice reflection. Thank you for that, Mfundo. Nice reflection there from Mfundo. Overall, just recapping his understanding of how it all played out. Just a balanced view overall. Let me speak to Mikey Man in Pretoria. Good morning. Also on the same topic. Straight to the point, please.
Good morning, Thulas. Thulas, I'm also very much disappointed. I'm very much disappointed in that meeting because it looked like it's a seventh masters meeting. It didn't look like we have country leaders who are actually representing the challenges that we are facing. It was an opportunity for our president to inform the United States leadership in terms of the decisions that have been taken. You remember, the issue of the land has been decided by Parliament. The issue of the land is the issue that everyone in this country understands its significance. There's no need to go to there. But we are not fully represented there. It was a 7 masters meeting. They went there just to make the master happy. That's why even the delegate that they took, they did not take the delegate that will represent the aspirations of the people, but they chose people that will make the master to smile, the master to be happy. So that's a clear indication of the leadership deficit that we have. It was not a meeting for the country. They missed an opportunity to inform United States about the challenges that we are having, the land that was stolen, the economy that is still in the hands of the few. So it was a very disappointing meeting. It was just a circus 7 master meeting.
Mike Mann, thank you for those reflections. Mike Mann in Pretoria, not impressed at all with the performance of Team South Africa during that meeting with Donald Trump.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
To this now, the Public Servants Association, the PSA, has condemned the Gauteng provincial government for what it calls a diversionary and negligent response to the recent fire at Tembisa Hospital. Rather than addressing the long-standing infrastructure and safety issues that led to the incident, the PSA accuses the government of using unproven arson claims to deflect accountability and avoid urgent reforms. Let's speak now to Madimecha Mautla, who is the provincial organizer of the Public Servants Association. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning. So what about this response by the Gauteng provincial government that includes factoring in the possibility of arson having been a factor doesn't sit well with you?
Good morning to Thulasizwe, and good morning to the listeners. The arson story is too hard to believe. For those who do not know the surrounding area of the hospital and the buildings and how the setup is like, they are more likely to believe it. But for the workers, who are there on a daily basis and knowing their surrounding area and what is possible and what is not possible, we do not believe the story of arson. It is preposterous. It is highly unlikely to be true. And we have said it before that the way the Gauteng provincial government is handling this matter, we raised the issue before that we foresee some attempt of cover-up from the way they were dealing with this issue from the beginning. Because we have warned about the infrastructure decay. For a long time, repeated warnings were ignored. Even the report from the Department of Labor and Employment has been ignored, and this is a concern for us, that the whole Department of Labor and Employment is not taken seriously by the departments, even where there are serious contravention and non-compliance with occupational health and safety. The department just choose not to do anything about it, and there are no consequences at all.
So it is your take, from what I hear, that this was as a result of negligence, just neglecting the maintenance and infrastructure. And you're saying that you've been raising this over a period of time. In what ways does that manifest at the hospital in ways that over a period of time concerned you, that this could be a fire hazard?
The Department of Labor and Employment has also flagged that specific section of the building that burned as one of the potential hazard areas. It is in the report that they are not even mentioning it in any way. Even in the meetings that we had with them, they don't even want to mention or touch on the inspection by the Department of Labor and Employment. And they are not even saying that earlier this year in February, there was an employee who had a ceiling collapsing on top of her head and she got injured. These are some of the things. After the fires, we also went into the hospital. We did an inspection. There was a patient who was saying, "I'm scared because underneath this bed, there are wires that are sparking fire." And this happened after the fire incident. This thing of a person who is probably maybe delusional and believing that he did burn the building, a building where there were more than 80 patients inside and staff members who were in there. Nobody saw the person. And when you look at this, the building itself, there is no way that the person can just come and disappear without being seen, especially when they claim that they used petrol or whatever, petrol bomb or whatever. There is no way. From the statements of the eyewitnesses who were there when the fire broke, those were not taken into account. We just suddenly hear a story that is being told. And even the court, the suspect was in court on Monday, apparently, and the matter was postponed because the court is still going to look for clarity from the Director of Public Prosecutions as to which schedule of the law to use to prosecute. I mean, has the court of South Africa never dealt with cases of arson before when they are telling us that they are not even sure which schedule, and there is a disagreement between the prosecution and the defense about the... I mean, it casts aspersions.
Lastly, then, Madimeja, how do we guard against what you believe may be, a cover-up and a diversion from taking responsibility for what you're saying has been neglect of that hospital in general, but that particular area, as far as compliance with occupational health and safety standards are concerned? What needs to be done to ensure that there's no cover-up, even if this case proceeds against this individual, but also ensuring that the issues you continue to raise, there's ownership of that issue and accountability, as well as addressing them?
Well, we don't see any political will from the Gauteng provincial government and the management of the hospital to resolve issues that has to do with occupational health and safety. It is clear as daylight that they are not even interested to touch on those issues. It is as if the hospital was in a perfect condition before the fire. But we have other options. We are considering to approach the office of the OHSC to do an investigation, an independent investigation, or even the office of the public protector, because we are going to give them all the evidence that we have and all the concerns that we have and the reasons that we believe that this needs an independent investigation, and then we'll take it from there. At the moment, we are still consulting with our legal team.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you for that. That is Madimeja Mautla, who is the provincial organizer for the Public Servants Association, the PSA.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy traffic on the M1 North going up into Pretoria this morning. Crash between Rigel and Garsfontein. Really big queues northbound into that. Multiple lanes are closed there. Southbound pretty heavy with the onlooking factor going on as well. Durban, bit of a nightmare unfolding with a crash scene at Spaghetti Junction. The highway was closed for a short time. They managed to open it, but only one lane to get through. Major delays coming from Pinetown on your way to Durban, and a really big spillover in terms of diverting volumes, clogging the M13 Westfield over the N2 works through the bridge through the N2 works, and then down to Sherwood. Very heavy backlogging going on there as well. Umgena Road fairly heavy through Springfield Park. There might be a bit of action avoiding all the sort of M13 and N3 and just ending up on M19 Umgena Road, Springfield Park. It's very slow going through there. Also, a crash N7 eastbound before the N2 highway again. So if you're on your way through to Bluff, it's bad. Cape Town, really big traffic jam on the N7 this morning. A taxi crash between Bosmansdam Road and Platterkloof. The queue deep back into Goodwood territory. Southbound, busy coming through Platterkloof towards Bosmansdam. Having a look at that as well. And a collision on the R300 north before Stellenbosch Arterial. All lanes open, but traffic remains heavy from the N2 highway. In fact, queuing from sort of Spine Road, Khayelitsha on the N2 inbound just to get into the R300 north queue. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Your night's just got a turbo boost. Buckle up, because at 10 p.m. it's all thrill, mystery and pure entertainment. Mondays to Wednesdays, we are back on the track with Top Gear Season 14, where speed meets insanity and the world's wildest cars get pushed to their limits. On Thursdays, we uncover the truth in Imposter, Back from the Dead. Season 1 kicks off with chilling twists in a tale of deception, survival, and secrets long buried. Fridays, we take a deep dive into the unknown with Secrets of the Bermuda, exploring the myths, the disappearances, and the terrifying truth behind the world's most infamous triangle. 3 explosive shows, 1 unforgettable hour. It all starts at 10 p.m. only on S3. Don't miss it!
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah. Every morning, from all the messages that I receive from you as well as the calls, there's always something that just makes me smile every single day. It can be something that I didn't know and someone has deeper knowledge and understanding of it, or it can be just a comment in passing that I find interesting. And this morning, this one has got me smiling.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I hear your doctor always when he leaves. He said, Hassan Kesana. What language is that and what does it mean? Just so we learn.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. It's Kiswahili. Asante sana means thank you very much. Sana, I think you add sana in that language. And if I'm wrong, I can imagine all the Kiswahili speakers coming for me. But I believe you put sana as part of emphasis to say very much. Asante being thank you. So asante sana, thank you very much. And you know, it's an expression that Sipho Mantula has adapted for himself, and it's a signature expression for him. But if you go back a few years ago when I covered the situation in Zimbabwe, and there was that media briefing by the then president, the late Robert Mugabe, during which briefing people thought he was going to resign. And he then spoke and spoke and spoke, and then at the end said, Asante sana. That became the expression of the moment that, you know, captured the disappointment of those who had expected that he would resign in that address. Asante sana, thank you very much. And asante sana for asking that question. You'll pick up a lot of themes that have to do with what came out of the meeting between President Trump and President Ramaphosa yesterday. So let me play one or two of those voice notes and then go straight to the calls.
Even now, to Thulasizwe, you see, the entire blame, everything it's AfriForum's fault. But the reality is that Julius Malema did say anything. And the South African courts, there was nothing done to him, as opposed to if the word kill the Boer was replaced with kill the African, or the derogatory K word. What consequences would follow? Would it be the same?
Sure, I hear you. And I fully understand and get what you are saying, the dissatisfaction with the outcome of the litigation of those matters. But the fact of the matter is there was consequence management in the sense that no one can say Julius Malema has not been hauled before the courts at least 2 times over these issues. And there has been an outcome in a proper judicial process. You being dissatisfied with the outcome, I also get and understand that. But it's quite a stretch from that to South Africa is committing genocide of Afrikaners. It's really quite a stretch, is it not? That really would be my response to you. Glenn in Bedfordview, good morning to you. You want to talk about Trump and Ramaphosa?
Thulas, are you there?
Yes, I am. Please go ahead.
I'm going to be quick, my brother, as
Sure.
always. This is what I picked up yesterday. I mean, Mr. Johan Rupert was my champion yesterday. Once you invite him on your show one day, please do invite me so I can thank him in person. He articulated the situation quite properly, so eloquently. He's the only person who stood up for South Africa there. And he was color by, he didn't care about color. He just spoke the truth. And that is what I appreciated, which our president failed to do. Because this is what happens to us when we are not in touch with the communities as the leader of the country. He was shown a video of an AfriForum, these Afrikaners who were doing some memorial, whatever. I think there was somewhere in the Northern Cape, I'm not mistaken, that video of those crosses. Because the president does not want to meet with these farmers, these aggrieved and Afrikaners. So he didn't know. He even asked, did they tell where that was? Because that's what happens when you lead people you don't communicate to. Because this thing of these Afrikaners, the president has just swallowed his pride, went and met these communities just like any other person he goes to in Soweto or any other place. Meet them, listen to them. Some of these things could have been averted.
In fairness, Glenn, there has been that interaction recently. I can't remember the details, but I do know that there has been a recent interaction, at least with AfriForum. I think it's with the government, if not with the ANC. But you know what? I don't want to commit to who exactly was part of that engagement. But I get the point that you are making. Lines of communication, dialogue among us as South Africans before we then end up having to have a dialogue that is publicized and it plays out in the full glare of the international media. And even one meeting, is it enough? Should the dialogue not be ongoing such that we agree on the issues that, are in issue and we have a dispute over, and also agree on the facts of what the situation is in South Africa? But that's a good point that Glenn is making. And Musa on standby with the latest news at 8 a.m.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, President Ramaphosa says Trump visit a success and EFF reacts to Godongwana's budget speech. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa has summed up the bilateral meeting with US President Donald Trump as a success. Ramaphosa addressed the media following a closed-door meeting with Trump. He also praised his delegation, which consisted of 4 ministers as well as business people, golfers and trade union representatives. Ramaphosa says a variety of issues were discussed and there was an agreement to continue engaging, especially on issues of trade. He also emphasized the crucial role the US plays within the G20 framework.
My takeaway from that is that G20 participation by the United States is going to be happening. So we're particularly pleased with that. So all in all, I do believe that our visit here has been a great success. We've been able to achieve what we set out to achieve re-engagement with the U.S., to put the issues of investment and trade on the table, and to ensure that we continue engaging.
Trump earlier confronted President Ramaphosa with false claims of white genocide. He played a video clip that included EFF leader Julius Malema chanting the struggle song Kill the Boer to substantiate his claim that white farmers in South Africa were being targeted. Trump also presented newspaper clippings of crime in South Africa.
When you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that kill the white farmer and take their land. That's what. And I have other friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now we're going to talk about it. But this is a tremendous look. This is story recent. These are all people that recently got killed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it can get any worse.
In other news, EFF leader Julius Malema says Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has reneged on extending the zero VAT rated list. Godongwana finally delivered this year's budget speech to the National Assembly in Cape Town. The budget was delayed as the ANC and GNU partner, the DA, were at loggerheads over the proposed VAT hike. The EFF also opposed the hike. Malema says Godongwana delivered an austerity budget.
The ANC is stuck. There is no believable program to grow the economy and to create jobs, and that's why they wanted to go for a shortcut, which to them was automatically VAT. This is an austerity budget because even where they said we were going to put so much, but we're no longer putting so much. If you check in the main, it's education, it's health, it's police, it's services that are directed to our people. They said they were going to increase the list of the zero rated. Now they came back and said they are no longer increasing the list of the zero rated.
A 43-year-old alleged pastor accused of raping his 19-year-old daughter in Matsulu, Mpumalanga, has been released on 3,000 Rand bail by the Matsulu Magistrates Court. It's alleged the accused raped the victim since she was 15 years old until December last year. He was arrested early last month after the victim told her mother what had been happening. The NPA's Monica Nuswa
was granted bail on the following conditions: that the accused does not commit a Schedule 1 offence, he doesn't interfere with the state witnesses in the matter, he report to Malelane police station once a week between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and that the accused attend the court until the matter is finalized. The matter was postponed until the 1st of July 2025 for further investigations.
And finally, 2 City of Cape Town law enforcement officers are due to appear in the Kailicha Magistrates Court on the Cape Flats today on charges of kidnapping and extortion. Police spokesperson Wesley Tweak says the suspects, aged 36 and 41 years old, demanded asylum documentation from a man at a supermarket. He says when the man was unable to produce the documents, the suspects took him and demanded ransom money from his family.
The victim's brother managed to gather an undisclosed amount of cash, which he handed over to the officers, leading to the victim's release. Following the investigation, the investigating officer applied for arrest warrants, which were subsequently granted by the court. The suspects, aged 36 and 41, were arrested on Tuesday, 20 May.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has summed up the bilateral meeting with US President Donald Trump as a success. Ramaphosa addressed the media following a closed-door meeting with Trump. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
This just in, a 38-year-old man named Tabang is a real Outsurance client who switched and now saves an unbelievable 363 Rand a month on his 2018 Toyota Corolla 1.6. That's 363 Rand more money in his pocket every month. Outsurance clients always get something out. You could too. Get a quote today and see how much they could save you on your car insurance. Make today the day you switch and save with Outsurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer. The 2025 CAF Champions League final promises to be a thrilling encounter as South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns will host Egypt's Pyramid FC in the first leg at Loftus. We'll be building up to that, as well as the FIFA Club World Cup gets underway in June, and FIFA has granted all 32 Club World Cup participants a special transfer window to sign new players. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Bit of drama out in Mpumalanga this morning. The N4 Elands Valley section was closed earlier for crash recovery, with everyone being diverted up along Schoeman's Kloof. There's now been a crash on Schoeman's Kloof, so that road is closed, and motorists are now being diverted along the Elands Valley as that crash in is now stop-go control. So it's been a bit of a switch around this morning. If you're driving between Mashaladorp and Mbombela, expect some delays. Pretoria N1 North, a crash before Garsfontein, very heavy backlogging into that. Southbound pretty dire as well with the onlooking factor. Durban, the crash at Spaghetti Junction still causing a really big delay in from Paradise Valley. The M13 just north of the N3 corridor, very heavy from Westville all the way through the N2 and down in towards Sherwood with diverting pressures there. Cape Town crash R300 north at Stellenbosch Arterial, all lanes open, but it is heavy from the N2. And a collision on the N7 north up at Plattekloof Road this morning. It's a heavy backlog deep into Goodwood territory. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Welcome to it. This is the third hour of the Morning Brief on this Thursday. It is great to be in your company. It's just after, it's coming up to 10 minutes after 8. Lots of conversations on the go this morning, a lot of it having to do with reflections on how the meeting between the US President Donald Trump and our President Cyril Ramaphosa went in the Oval Office in the White House in Washington, D.C. The President, as you heard there in the news with Ann Musa, reflecting reflecting on that and saying that overall the objectives of the meeting were achieved, in the sense that President Ramaphosa says they've agreed to keep the lines of communication open, particularly with regard to issues of trade, and saying that that work will be picked up by the various representatives on the trade front. So I'm taking your reactions and responses to that, but we've also been reflecting on issues including the budget that was delivered by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana yesterday at the third take. Finally, the budget being passed with various elements to it. They do include spending, cuts in certain areas, but the minister insists that the core frontline service departments will retain, their baseline budgets, at least for this year. But it's also the levels of increase in the coming years that will be affected. Also there coming out is the realization that there could be savings of up to 300 billion rand that could be realized from, projects and programs of government that are simply not performing. So I'd love to hear your reflections as well on that. In this hour, a bit later on, we'll be talking about the so-called Nelson Mandela rules. These are the rules of the United Nations that have to do with the minimum standards and rules for the treatment of prisoners and people incarcerated around the world. Those rules have been around for a good 10 years now. It's the 10th anniversary. So we'll be reflecting on that, the extent to which we've lived up to those ideals. That conversation with the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, Makgoti Tobakhale, coming up at about 8:45 this morning. But through it all, as I said, I'll be taking your calls. Give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Please send me WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. The third hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Can one word unlock eternal glory? Okay, maybe just a shiny trophy and bragging rights. It's Password US, hosted by the king of chaos himself, Jimmy Fallon. Celebrities try to guess words. Hilarity ensues. Logic? Optional. Laughter guaranteed. Password US, where saying the right word might win the game, but saying the wrong one is way more fun. Password US, Saturdays 7:30 on S3. Say it like you mean it, or don't. We're not judging.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Sabelo in Pietermaritzburg, I'm going to start with you, and you know why. Because I'm noticing that you're the only one, at least for now, who's swimming against the tide. All of the callers I have lined up want to talk about the meeting in the Oval Office. So I like that, you pulling in a different direction. Talk to me about the budget. Please go ahead.
One of the issues that I noted with the fuel levy increase is that I'm noting that the minister has already determined that it's going to come into effect on the 4th of June. If we remember, there's still a matter in court about the VAT Act, but primarily I think the main issue is about the minister's power to impose or make changes to taxes without the parliamentary oversight and public participation process. Now, in this case, we have the Duties and Levies Act, if I'm not mistaken. They are also giving the minister the same power that the VAT Act gives the minister. So in my thinking, I'm thinking, in as much as the DA challenge, which I think is part B of that matter in court, is about the VAT, but the principle applies across this fuel levy as well. So I was thinking that perhaps the respect for that court process, for the court to express itself on that before this comes into effect. Well, if we have to charge or increase the fuel levy, I'm all for that. But the principle and for the process is to be respected, to say, as the citizens, are we okay with the executive simply determining the increase and it coming into effect without our opinions being heard?
I gotcha.
Perhaps if you can put in your lawyer classes and look into that, perhaps you can have
it makes a great
discussion
deal of
going
sense,
forward.
Sabelo. Thank you for that. That's Sabelo there in Pietermaritzburg. I hear the point he's making, that if the problem is the unchecked powers of one minister to determine that this tax is going to go up, and Sabelo saying that, the same principle applies in terms of the general fuel levy being a form of taxation. What an interesting take on that. I had not thought of it that way. Thank you for that, Sabelo. Let me take one or two voice notes and then go to the calls.
Hi, Thulasizwe. South Africa held ransom by Trump as they forced to go and prove themselves that South Africa doesn't have a genocide here in South Africa. So far, the negotiations between USA and South Africa for trade relations is still in process. That is what Trump wants against the adversaries of China and Russia. My name is Les.
Thank you for that, Les. Let me play one more about the performance of President Ramaphosa in that meeting.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Ramaphosa failed miserably to refute the claims of genocide here in South Africa. He even asked for backup from John Steenhuisen, but Steenhuisen, also the person who could have saved the day, just didn't make his point clear. The people who stood up for South Africa was Johan Rupert and Zingi Swallozi. Those are the men of the match who stood up for South Africa. But Ramaphosa doesn't have anything to be proud of. He failed when they showed him those video clips.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. A lot of people talking about Johan Rupert as well as Zingi Swalosi. And I saw someone even already, the way people are so quick with creating these AI-generated images. Someone already had Johan Rupert holding a Man of the Match trophy in that style of football. Let's speak to Z in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Z.
Morning, Thulas. I want to start in an opposite place. I would like to not talk about the personalities and the egos. I would want to talk about what I think is the bigger issue. And that is that I think there were no winners. There were only losers to begin with. And the losers were truth, the lived realities of South Africans from day to day. And I'll illustrate it with a final point I'll come to in a minute or two. And ultimately focus on the real issues that we need to tackle as South Africans. So let me just move quickly to the elaboration, I guess. The fact that there is no white genocide, and as a country, we must, for all our sakes, get past that notion of a contrived white genocide.
Absolutely.
But we can't ignore the fact that there is racially infused hatred and crime which was broadcast live for hundreds of millions to see, which leads me to my second point. The president, with great respect, spoke as if the problems were somehow created somewhere out there and existed without control or influence. He and previous administrations led by one party have failed to address those problems, and coming there and asking for help from the US by way of investment, technology, crime prevention, trade, aid, I'm sorry, that is an own goal, to use the man of the match expression that was used a minute or two ago. And then finally, I feel that as South Africans, we are left in our ignorance, because when we talk and we chant about how we're going to do trade deals with Russia and India and China, these countries are progressing and pulling ahead. Post-war economies like Rwanda, Somalia, Mozambique, Angola have pulled ahead. I'll carry on about where we think we need to be and how unimportant the United States is. I don't believe we must pander to the United States. But saying all of those things didn't put the loaf of bread on the table. It didn't put the liter of milk in the fridge. And when we deal with real problems like the budget and we get hit by what is stealth tax in a few levy, instead of trimming the problems with a bloated and inefficient government, the lived reality of South Africans is exactly the same it was day before.
Thank you for that. That's Z in Cape Town. Great points there being made by Z. Mandla in Cape Town as well. Talk to me about that same meeting, Trump and Ramaphosa.
Yeah, Thulas. Thulas, there's a leadership vacuum here in South Africa. We don't have a leader here. We are leaderless. Ramaphosa is absent in his presence. You know, AfriForum has been wanting to meet Ramaphosa for a very long time. He ignored them. Just like the ANC politicians who ignore people when they protest about service delivery, protesting about service delivery, until they call police and police shoot people with rubber bullets. You know, so even the Khoisan leadership was in union building for a year. They kept there wanting to speak to Ramaphosa. He ignored them. This guy, Ramaphosa, we are here, we are where we are now today because of him. You know, going to America, the whole world hearing that South Africa is a violent country. Who would want to come and invest in a country that is violent?
Yeah.
Swallow say, no, we are a violent country. Ramaphosa was supposed to call Malema into order singing the Kill the Boer song. He was supposed to call a meeting like he did during the coronavirus time. He was supposed to call a family meeting and address South Africa and say, no one will be killed here, and assure the farmers that government is behind you. No one will kill you. And unite the country. The constitution demands that Ramaphosa.
Got your point. That's Mandla in Cape Town. Let me move on to Jock in KZN. Good morning to you, Jock. You have framed your input this morning quite interestingly. You want to talk about the Stellenbosch Mafia.
Yes, good morning. Listening to this, and I've got to be quick because Stanza's already giving me my orders. So in any case, I want to know first of all, who's going to apologize to Johan Rupert about the Stellenbosch Mafia when on an open world stage is how he behaved and showed what his loyalty to South Africa is. As a billionaire, he still stays in the country. So whoever's told him anything, I think they either owe him an apology or they basically review their thoughts. The other thing is the budget. I wanted to quickly say it on is that the budget, by the looks of things and with the presentation that we've currently had yesterday, means that there was never really an increase, there was no need to increase the VAT had we done our sums and checks and balances correctly and taken everybody's input from the beginning. The other one is that with President Ramaphosa, I'm not going to comment on whether he did or didn't advance his statements or to promote the country, but what I would state is that actions speak louder than words. So the people that he took actually speaks a lot louder than what he actually had to say. And the other last thing I want to say is I'd like to see now the people that support Palestine on what they have to state with the two Israeli ambassadors that were killed in the Washington, D.C. So I would go back and say that when they say Hamas is a terrorist organization, I would say if you're killing people from one country in another, I think we got to check and see what our checks and balances are.
All right.
Thank you so
Jock,
much.
thank you for that. That's Jock in KZN there. Gwena, I'm going to have to call you back and just take your call a bit later on, just in the interest of time. But I do want to squeeze in these comments from Lala K in Pietermaritzburg, who says, in such engagements, timing is everything. President Ramaphosa should have allowed Trump to answer first, then responded in this sequence. 1. Quote official crime stats, adding that AfriForum and Solidarity have accepted and endorsed these stats, that is, no genocide in South Africa. 2. Throw in that line about his white man entourage. 3. Emphasize that emigration/immigration is a natural phenomenon, is a genocide. All of those points well made, but I wonder to what extent did facts matter in that whole conversation. I just get the sense that you're dealing here with a president who just recently was confronted with a clearly photoshopped picture of someone's knuckles with the letters MS-13, but insisted that no, that's a tattoo. This guy is a member of this gang called MS-13. He tattooed it on his knuckles, despite being told that no, this is photoshopped. So I don't know, a part of me just feels like it wouldn't have mattered. I suppose the bigger conversations for me are the ones that you are raising this morning. How do we deal with what we told the world, that we are a violent country, crime-ridden country? Then what do we do about it? And that is on us.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
From immunity boosters to self-meds, let Dis-Chem help you thrive this winter. Get 20% off all A. Vogel Echinoforce products. Buy any 3 Slowmax supplements and get the cheapest free. Relieve your cough with 2+1 cheapest free on any Benylin products. Find incredible deals on everything you need to nurture your mental and physical health. Offers end 15 June. T's and C's apply. Shop now at Dis-Chem pharmacies. Better health starts here.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
I'm scrambling to find my mic on button. Tell me about Mamelodi Sundowns and them being on a high and heading into the Champions League final. Oh. I should be wearing my Sundowns shirt.
You should be.
I don't have a Sundowns shirt. Someone help me out there.
That's the thing when you work here. Everybody else wears your shirt, but you. I know the feeling, but yeah, Sundowns, man. Somebody, they say, might have the roar, but Sundowns know they are really the kings of the jungle. They're gearing up for this seismic continental showdown, taking on the Tanzanian giant Simba SC in the CAF Champions League. That's Saturday, 3 p.m. The Brazilians are brimming with confidence after dispatching Al Ahly and securing a historic place in the final. And with the first leg set for Loftus Versfeld, Coach Miguel Cardoso will be counting on Lucas Ribeiro's and as attacking flair, Teboho Mokwena's midfield engine, and Ronwen Williams' steady hands. You can catch the action live on SABC Sport. In the meantime, FIFA has officially granted all 32 participating clubs in the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup, including Mamelodi Sundowns, a special transfer window to strengthen their squads ahead of the tournament. The special registration period runs from the 1st to the 10th of June 2025, allowing clubs to sign new players specifically for the competition, which kicks off on the 14th of June in the United States. Closer to home, Kaizer Chiefs midfielder George Matlu says, having grown up in church, he's left his future with the club in the hands of God. The 26-year-old is one of the players whose contracts are coming to an end on the 30th of June, but he says he's focusing the attention now to the Crunch Betway Premiership closing match against Polokwane City, and that's this Saturday. Chiefs need to win that game in order to sneak into the top 8 this season, and Matlu says he keeps communication with his agent to a minimum to focus on the game.
I think,
as a player, I'm only focusing on the game. So the last game we're going to play, it's on Saturday. So what's going to happen next, it's the club and my agent. So I'll hear from my agent what he says. I'm one player that doesn't talk to the agent when the season's on. So I will have to focus on the team that I'm playing for currently. Because if I'm going to start thinking about the contract and stuff, I'm going to lose the concentration on the game.
Let's go to the former Springbok woman now, Zineid Jordan. She's set to return to the Bok women setup in a new capacity as coach come England and the Rugby World Cup 2025. Jordan, who recently completed the World Rugby's Level 3 coaching course, will return to the global showpiece with the Springbok women.
Just to see how the players also engage when there's questions being asked, the clarity that's being given, the uncertainties that are being clarified and ironed out, especially in the meeting. So coming to the field, it makes it so much easier to apply those things. So yes, coaching will always be part of it, but just knowing that the players understand and know where this is.
And finally, South Africa's under-21 women's hockey team coach Cindy Brown confirming that their 2025 FIH Junior World Cup preparations are resuming.
I think, if one just has to look at our school structures to know that hockey is really in a healthy place. And, hopefully with players seeing the success we've had at under-21 level, as I said, hopefully it'll inspire them to continue working hard and striving to be part of the next cycle of under-21s.
We'll be back with more sport around 12:30 with John Hedeka. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the EFF says it's proud of its legislative and political agenda that has shaken the corridors of imperialism in Washington. The party's comments come after the much-anticipated meeting between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the US President Donald Trump at the White House. The bail application of a 29-year-old man accused of raping and impregnating an 11-year-old girl is expected to resume at the Boksburg Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg today. And there were mixed reactions from political parties in Parliament after the tabling of the 2025 budget. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana delivered the budget at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's been a couple of big incidents this morning having quite a major impact. Perhaps the biggest at this stage is the N1 North in Pretoria, crashed before Garsfontein. Traffic all the way back heavily across all lanes to Boerta Avenue. That's a really big backlog. Might want to come off at Boerta or at the R21, hit some alternatives. Also, southbound traffic coming through from Linwood down to Garsfontein, having a look at that. The N1 between Malabongwe and William Mandela, all of a sudden there's a backlog and a couple of lane closures on the R21 North approaching the Benoni exit, always guaranteeing a delay this time of morning, leaving the airport. Durban, the crash on the N3 inbound at Spaghetti Junction's being cleared, but there's a really big queue still coming in from Pinetown. On your way through to Durban, a crash on the M7 at the N2, so another busy one through Queensborough as you get down towards the Bluff area, or direction Bluff if you like. And two breakdowns south of Pietermaritzburg, one on your way to Durban before Ashburton, that's heavy. Another on your way to Pietermaritzburg by Linfield Park, and that's a big queue getting back through Umlas Road area. Cape Town, couple of crashes on the R300 north have left some slow-moving traffic towards Stellenbosch Arterial, and a taxi crash between Bosmansdam and Plattekloof Road, still holding traffic both ways on the N7 highway. Also, just in Cape Town, this is worth a mention, no traffic lights up by Cape Gate Mall on Okavango, so Okavango North is heavy, and the highway is trying to get off at Okavango. It starts to queue back on the R300 around Old Powell Road, all the way up onto the N1, and then all the way out to Okavango Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Yeah, one more update from Dowling Lechela. Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's reflect on the budget 3.0, a revision in terms of the expected and projected growth rate. That's not good news for us.
Not at all, and this from 1.9%. National Treasury has now revised the local economic growth forecast for the year downwards to 1.4%. However, this doesn't come as a surprise because we've seen international financial institutions and some institutions here at home also revised downwards their GDP forecast, considering what we saw in the fourth quarter, as well as considering how the macroeconomic picture has changed. We've seen the Bureau for Economic Research and Moody's predict growth of around 1.5% this year. Despite this, Treasury remains cautious about our economic outlook, noting that the decision to scrap the proposed VAT increase has reduced the government's ability to fund additional programs and projects. Over the medium term, GDP growth is forecast to reach 1.6%, with growth expected to pick up to 1.8% in 2027. Now, the budget deficit is expected to narrow to 4.8% of GDP in 2025-26 and further to 3.4% in 2027-2028. The government debt is forecast to rise from 5.69 trillion in 2024-25 to 6.82 trillion rands in 2027-28. In terms of revenue, the Treasury has also announced an increase in the fuel levy, which is expected to generate additional revenue for the government, but won't be enough to plug that 75 billion rand hole. Despite concerns about Treasury's credibility, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana pointed to S&P Global's ratings recent affirmation of South Africa's positive outlook as evidence of the Treasury's credibility in the eyes of the markets.
You know, Ndauling, because I'm a good student and you are an okayish kind of teacher, I now know that this one is called Canal Plus. Tell me about Canal Plus and the multi-choice deal. It's making significant progress with competition authorities.
That's right. As the French would say, Canal Plus they are one step closer to acquiring multi-choice Thulas, and this after the Competition Commission recommended that the Competition Tribunal approve the deal. The Commission found that the proposed transaction is unlikely to lessen or prevent competition in any market, subject to certain conditions. Now, these conditions include a package of public interest commitments worth an estimated 26 billion rands over 3 years, which will support local content creators, small businesses, and historically disadvantaged persons in the audiovisual industry. Notably, the two companies have agreed to a 3-year moratorium on retrenchments following the merger, and with this development, the transaction will now be considered by the tribunal, while the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA, will also weigh in on the matter. Now, the deal, which could be the biggest M&A deal in South Africa in 2024-2025, and has been ongoing since 2020, with Canal Plus gradually increasing its stake in MultiChoice. Of course, this has been, a long process, and it seems like markets are pleased with the move, considering that Canal Plus and MultiChoice made changes to the deal earlier this year.
See, I listen and I take notes. Lastly, telling what kind of a day can we expect in the markets on this Thursday?
The local markets might start the day mixed. The JSE, however, has been very resilient despite downbeat global sentiment. Today, markets will open to news from Investec and Teresa, and we'll also see some reaction from yesterday's presidential meeting between Ramaphosa and Trump. The rand, in the meantime, defying the odds and remaining firm. This as the dollar weakens as traders are concerned about the U.S. tax bill. With that, the rand is at 17.97 to the dollar. Slight weakness from yesterday's 17.89, but still under that 18 rand mark. Over in Wall Street, futures are mixed. Concerns over the U.S. economy weighing on investor sentiment. We are seeing pressure on U.S. treasuries in the bond markets, that really continuing amid fears that President Trump's push for new tax cuts could further inflate the already massive federal deficit. And that downbeat momentum seems to be weighing on Asian markets as well. Those stocks on track to close the day in the red.
Ndauling, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela, always right on the money, and she's kept you updated on business, markets, and the economy over the last 3 hours.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel, Rosabelle, and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 Open Up.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
20 minutes to 9. At the 34th Crime Commission, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, is marking the 10th anniversary of the Nelson Mandela Rules, reaffirming the global commitment to humane and rights-based prison management. These internationally adopted standards, formerly known as the UN Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, are a tribute to Nelson Mandela's legacy and a guiding framework for ensuring dignity within incarceration systems worldwide. So let's speak to Makgoti Tobagale, the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So South Africa was instrumental in how these ended up being crafted and some of the themes and principles that are captured therein, and also the naming convention, the Nelson Mandela Rules. But just overall, I believe there's about 122 principles. Is there a thread and a theme that runs through them?
Good morning to the Caesar and listeners. Yes, the thread is that we need to treat offenders with dignity, but at the same time, we need to ensure that they take responsibility for the crimes that they committed. And lastly, they need to account for those crimes, which is very important when it comes to the social reintegration part of the work that we do, which, if you like, you can call it the final lap with regards to ensuring that they get integrated into the community and they do not reoffend.
Yeah. So to what extent then, at this conference that has been taking place, the reflection on the extent to which countries that signed up have been able to live up to those principles? Because the principles are a goal and an ideal, but the reality on the ground differs from country to country, I imagine. What came out in the reflection of the extent to which people have been able to live up to the Nelson Mandela Rules?
There are two aspects to it. The first aspect is that these countries had to come together to sponsor a resolution that in terms of progress, we are confident that it will be passed on Friday as resolution number 7, meaning that the whole platform will, in the same one word, be able to say, yes, we are celebrating the 10th year anniversary of Nelson Mandela Rules. The second aspect is that there was a side event, which is a very important aspect of the 34th Crime Commission that is currently taking place, where all the countries were now showcasing how the rules are practically implemented. And the central theme was rehabilitation. Even ourselves as South Africa, we had to showcase the projects, the programs that we are implementing to change the mindset and the behavior of an offender, so that when the offender, as I have indicated, now has to serve the last part of the sentence on parole, and after sentence expiry date, that offender does not have to go back to the life of crime.
While you're talking about South Africa, what is it that we were showcasing, given some of the challenges in our prison system in this country? To start off with, the overcrowding rates in the country. I would argue and suggest to you, Commissioner, that those are not conducive for the rehabilitation in preparation for reintegration of the offender living in conditions such as those of the levels of overcrowding in this country?
We are not the only country in the world that is experiencing overcrowding. In fact, more than 60% of the correctional systems in the world experiences overcrowding. That's why we had an engagement in the Commission about how do we make it a point that the strategies that we have, like for instance, we have a strategy to deal with overcrowding in South Africa with a number of very defined actions. For instance, one of those is that we should continue to encourage alternative sentencing. Inmates that have committed crimes that can, be addressed in terms of behavioral change, not necessarily incarceration. In terms of the law, we are encouraging that we review the law and see how we can redirect those inmates to a system that can change their behavior instead of incarcerating them. Secondly, inmates that would be granted bail that is of small amounts, but they cannot afford. How do we make it a point that we convince the court to take a decision that is different from them being incarcerated? Inmates that have contravened immigration laws, they are not supposed to be in correctional facilities. They are supposed to be directly deported to the country of origin. So those actions were discussed here. And what was the central theme was, how do we ensure that as member states, we are able to engage with the lawmakers and ensure that our legislation is able to accommodate alternative sentencing and we can reduce the overcrowding. But most importantly, what are the crime prevention strategies that we can implement that would reduce the level of crime? Because if the level of crime does not go down, the numbers that we are experiencing coming in will not go down also.
All right.
So when it comes to challenges, we have treated, like for instance, reoffending. It's one of the resolutions that will be passed on Friday when the commission forms. Countries have to discuss what are the strategies to ensure that we reduce the level of reoffending globally.
All right, Commissioner, let's leave it there. Hopefully we can pick up this conversation again in the near future, because there are many, many themes that I think are worth teasing out. That is the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, that is Makgoti Thobagale.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touched it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every murder has a moment when it could have been stopped. Countdown to Murder takes you inside the chilling timeline from ordinary days to unthinkable crimes. Real stories, real people, and the final hours before everything fell apart. Countdown to Murder. Every second tells a story. Thursdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy getting up into Pretoria this morning on the M1. A crash by Garsfontein, M1 northbound. The backlog is right through Rigel, right through the R21 and down towards Boerta Avenue. You might want to consider alternative routes. Looks like a lot of motorists are ducking out at Boerta Avenue and actually running south into Irene, which is interesting. The N1 going north in Joburg. Crash before William Mandela. Delays coming up from the Randburg side. Queuing back as far as Malabongwe Drive. Just been a crash between Ashburton and Market Road on your way to Pietermaritzburg. That's likely to start slowing things up through there. The N3 remains heavy. Pavilion Mall into Spaghetti Junction after a crash earlier this morning. It looks like there may just still be some restrictions around that earlier scene. The M13's taken a real hammering, avoiding the N3 and just sitting in heaviness between Westville and Sherwood on that alternative run through. Cape Town crash, it's the second one this morning. R300 going north towards Stellenbosch Arterial. That is still quite slow. And a collision on the N7 taking a while to clear up. It's happened northbound between Bosmansdam and Plattekloof Road, and it is still very slow. And just watch around Mpumalanga this morning on the N4. There was a crash which closed Elands Valley. As soon as that sort of reopened under stop-go controls, there was another crash that closed Skumanskloof. So at this stage, if you're trying to get between Machadodorp and Mbombela, it looks like you'll probably be diverted through the stop-go controls around a crash on the Elands Valley section, diverting from the closure at Skumanskloof. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me quickly read a comment from Zingisi who says, we have genocide in South Africa, but it's not white. 70 people get killed a day. Every quarter, almost 6,500 people. That is from Zingisi there. And it talks to that point that I was making earlier on, that, the admissions that we have crime in this country and it's rampant and it's violent, well and truly well made. But what are we doing about it? We've told the world now. The world now knows that we know we have a crime problem. Now what? That becomes the question for me. Then someone else says, Ramaphosa and his team were not prepared. Why had his media team not briefed him on potential blindsides like the White Cross video? He could have had a more factual response ready. For all those listeners who are slamming Ramaphosa, imagine if he had been adversarial. He would have been shamed in front of the world like the poor reporter and called a stupid idiot. Ramaphosa had no option but to be diplomatic, and he was. So yeah, that talks to the dynamics of how he played it out, and that's a sense that I got, that he was. It was almost a tactical decision that says we are not going to be aggressive and confrontational, but we are going to try and put our points across as calmly as possible. Did it work? Well, you be the judge. Let me take these voice notes. One wants to reflect on the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, and I suppose his role in that meeting.
Hi, Thulas, is Doomsy from Cape Town. Is it lawful for the state or the government to go to another country and seek assistance in keeping a particular political party from taking over power? Is that lawful? Steenhuisen was representing the state, not the DA.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point that you are making. And that party that you're talking about being the EFF, I don't know if they were asking, I don't know if I heard, and I'm not disputing what you're saying at all. I'm just saying that I don't know if I heard him ask for assistance to keep the EFF out. If it did, I didn't hear it, and I'm open to that being a possibility. But I think the point he was making is that the reason why they are working together across the aisle in terms of the political divide in the country is precisely to keep the EFF out of government, out of union buildings. In fact, he went as far as to call Julius Malema a rebel. And I suppose there's something to be said about he was on a state mission, and did he then advance his own political arguments during that? And I suppose then there is a point to be made about that. Thank you for raising that point. Tita in Freiburg, good morning to you. I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly. Please correct me and then make your point, please.
Yeah, no, you did. My name is Peter. I love your show.
Thank you.
I'm always listening to your show every morning. I want to, congratulate the president.
Mm-hmm.
He showed maturity yesterday. That man is matured, and that man is a wonderful man. Whether anybody like it or not, Ramaphosa and his team projected South Africa with maturity. And that is why those who are crying, waiting for Ramaphosa to be laughed at, today they are laughing at them because that man showed diplomacy.
Yeah.
And he's an educated man and an advocate for that matter. So what I want to advise our people is that when someone takes over office, people should allow him to show his administration. People should not be accusing people every time. When you wake up in the morning, you wake up to accuse people. It's very, very bad for our government.
All right.
We need to build up this government and build our economy so that everyone can enjoy and benefit. I want to thank Ramaphosa and his team for presenting South Africa in a best way.
All right.
I'm so grateful.
Thank you for that. That's Theta in Freiburg there. And just highlighting just how divided opinions are on what happened yesterday in that meeting. Let me see if Mudau in Cape Town shares that view. Good morning to you, Mudau.
Hi, Thulasizwe. I like your show.
Thank you. We love having you on board.
I always listen it from 6 to 9. Yeah,
Thank you.
I like it so much. Look here, Ramaphosa did a good job taking Steinhazen with. He's a white man, and then go to Trump's and then to talk about this. People can criticize him, but I see he did a good job. And then something like because now we are in problem because now they take the fund out, people are retrenched, we don't have job.
Yeah.
And Malema is supposed to be arrested. He's talking the truth because now he put everybody in trouble because now the whole South Africa now we are punished because of him. Kill the bull, kill the farmer. They're still busy. This EFF singing about that song, and they still want to carry on singing that song, which is not good.
Yeah, but I don't know about arrested, though, Mudau. And then I'll tell you why. We're not that kind of a society. We're absolutely not that kind of a society. I think the punishment and consequence, if people don't agree with chants like the ones from the EFF, comes ultimately from the voters, right? The voters will then endorse, do you agree with what they are saying, what they are chanting, the critical mass of South Africans? Are you on board with this message? And I think that, for me, is punishment enough. We're not a country, for instance, that still has criminal defamation. We have criminal injuria, but not criminal defamation. We've done away with all of those things that you can be thrown in jail simply for the words that you speak, quite at a lower standard. I don't know if you get the point I'm making.
Yeah, but they put us in trouble. People are threatened. There's no job and we're depending on America. We've been working with them for a long time.
Yeah.
And they put us in trouble because of this politics. That is nonsense what it is.
Yeah.
Kill the bull, kill the farmer. Nobody has to be killed.
And lastly, Mudau, I also don't know, and I'm not trying to defend Julius Malema. I'm just not convinced that knowing Trump and having seen him operate, we would not have had some kind of iteration of this problem. Right now, he is being foregrounded, Julius Malema and his chance. But I don't know if we would have been spared from everything else that has been spinning in the Trump universe anyway.
No.
Just something for you to think about.
We're just gonna we're gonna see what is the answer because he still has to meet his cabinet.
Yeah,
and we'll see. We're gonna pray for it.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling, Mudau. Would love to hear from you again. That's Mudau in Cape Town. Let me go to Solomon. Solomon in KZN. Want to weigh in on Donald Trump? Please go ahead.
Thulasizwe, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I think the president demonstrated wisdom and maturity yesterday because he was in the corners Trump. He had limited alternatives. And I want to say that he had a choice of going there and be dismissive and be everything. but he chose to be diplomatic. Remember, there are 600 companies, American companies in the country.
Yeah.
If you can make a scenario, if they can disinvest, the people employed by those companies cannot be even absorbed by government. So Ramaphosa averted a Zimbabwe scenario where Mugabe was simply dismissive, was not technical to appreciate that much as there are historical injustices, there are distributive or rather distribution issues that has to be effected in the economy and the opportunities.
Yeah.
But presently, there are people who are benefiting out of that. And Ramaphosa could not behave like he's an opposition where he's leading. It is fair for everybody else to say he was there to beg, groveling and doing also. But for a president, sitting president who has to ensure that the economy is ticking and running, I think he was 100% correct.
All right, Solomon, let's leave it there. Wise words there, if you don't mind me saying. The wisdom of Solomon there. That's where we leave it at the top of the hour. That's it, really. Our full and final account to you in lieu of your morning brief for this morning. Stand by. The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlahlana coming up next here on SAFM after the news.
In our top stories, EFF reacts to President Ramaphosa's meeting with Trump and man accused of raping 11-year-old back in court. Good morning. The EFF says it's proud of its legislative and political agenda that has shaken the corridors of imperialism in Washington. The party's comments come after the much-anticipated meeting between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House. Trump played a video of EFF leader Julius Malema chanting "Kill the Boer" at the meeting to bolster his false claim that a genocide is being committed against white farmers in South Africa. EFF national spokesperson Sinao Tambo.
And they allowed Johan Rupert, who out of nowhere smuggled in